Hello, I'm Daniel, and welcome to the Emunah Project. And continuing our series of first-time visits to synagogues, a little advice with respect to the nature of the service. If you haven't had a heads up on what kind of congregation it is, what kind of service it is, if you're coming in cold and you've had some exposure to Judaism, and if you have a siddur, or if you can borrow a siddur that's in Hebrew and English, I'm presuming that the viewership here isn't fluent in Hebrew, it might be a good idea to bring your own siddur with you. Because when you get to the congregation, the siddurim, the prayer books that they have, may not be user-friendly for people who aren't fluent in Hebrew. You go to a synagogue, you want to be there, it's great, everything sounds wonderful. Let's say it's a Sephardi congregation or a Hasidic congregation, it's wonderful, everything's fine. You pick up the prayer book, not one word in English. It's not necessarily going to be the most meaningful thing in the world. Good idea, take a paperback pocket edition, stick it in your pocket, stick it in your purse, and that way at least you'll be able to participate in some way. The style of the service. There are many different styles. If you go to a Reform congregation for the first time, it's going to be less of a problem. In Canada, the United States, Australia, most of it, if not all of it, is going to be in English. Same thing with the Conservative. A lot of the service will be in Hebrew. A lot of the instructions, everything, the talking will always be in English. There's no mechitza, no separation between men and women. It's a little more user-friendly for the first time. Orthodox congregations, take a siddur with you, and is it an Ashkenazi congregation or is it a Sephardic congregation? It makes a difference to not only the nusach, but the style of, literally the style of prayers, the orders, the order in which the prayers come, but also in pronunciation and in the style. For example, in most of the Sephardi synagogues that I've gone to, whoever the chazan and whoever is the leading the services, in Sephardi congregations, they tend to pronounce every single word out loud. If you can follow along at least a little bit with the Hebrew, it's a lot easier to follow in a Sephardi congregation. In Ashkenazi congregations, that's not always the case. Usually they will say the first line out loud, people will say the prayer to themselves, and then the leader, the chazan, whoever is leading the services, will repeat the final line loudly. So you know the beginning and the end, and in between it's up to you. Also, if you know enough to follow along in the Hebrew, if you're following, for example, the Torah reading, depending on the pronunciation, it'll be a little easier or a little less easy to follow, just simply because of the pronunciation. You may be going somewhere to, for example, a Hasidic congregation that speaks a particular, let's say, Galiciana dialect of Yiddish, with the pronunciation, and their Hebrew follows that style, it may be almost unrecognizable to you. Just to give you a taste, let's use for example, it's not a part of a synagogue service, but let's say the blessing of washing hands, just off the top of my head. In standard Hebrew, you say, Baruch Hashem, Melech haolam asher kidshanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu al natilat yadayim. That's your basic Hebrew. Slight differences if you're using Yiddish. For example, say al natilas yadayim. Little differences with the final S and with the pronunciation. Galiciana. These are Jews from Hungary, Romania, Southeast Poland, certain parts of the Ukraine. Same bracha. Baruch Hashem. Melech Hoilam Asher Kidshuni B'mitzvosav V'tzivuni Al Netilas Yidat. You could be a little lost for the first time until you get used to it. I'm so used to it, I've now started picking up that dialect, even though I've got no connection to it other than I sometimes daven in Hasidic congregations, Bobov Hasidim, for example, who use that pronunciation. I'm in congregations where there are a lot of Hungarian, Romanians, Czechoslovakian immigrants and children of immigrants. So that may be the pronunciation. If you can find something that's a little more friendly to your ear, great. If not, get used to it. Sometimes the orders of the prayers are different. You may find yourself getting a little lost. If you can adapt yourself to the siddur of that congregation, it'll be a lot easier to follow. Sometimes you can, sometimes you can't. Sometimes you can. It depends. If you're in a Chabad congregation, no problem. Their siddur has the Hebrew on one side and the English on the other side. If you bring your own siddur, for example, an Art Scroll siddur, you'll follow the English and the Hebrew. And even though you don't necessarily follow all the Hebrew, if you know that they're saying Aleinu, L'Shabech, okay, Aleinu, I know that, and you'll read the prayer in English. Also, as a general rule, especially to newcomers, and I'm talking to Baalei Tshuva and to Gerim, to returnees and to converts, don't be rushed, especially when it comes to the Shema and the Amidah, the Shmona Esrei, the standing prayer, the silent standing prayer. Don't worry about keeping up. Don't be rushed. The rate you are going at is the rate you need to be. The place in the synagogue where you are is the place where you need to be. If you're davening, if you're praying more slowly than the others, some people zip through it. Even I've been going to shuls for decades, and I cannot believe how quickly some people get through, for example, the Aleinu prayer. I'm about a third of the way through, and guys are finished. Birchas Hamazon, Birchat Hamazon, the grace after meals. People are closing up their things, they're getting up and walking away from the table. I'm barely halfway through. And I daven at a pretty fast clip. Don't be rushed, don't be intimidated, especially with the Shema, especially with the Amidah. Read it in English. Make it meaningful. Don't just rattle through it for the sake of getting through it because you don't want to be, too late for whatever reason. Make it meaningful. You remember, you're talking to God. Everything else comes after that. You're addressing the Holy One, the Creator. That conversation takes priority. Read it at your own pace. Read it at the pace you feel comfortable. Don't be intimidated by congregants. And also, and I give you a piece of advice that was given to me a long time ago and was great. I've said it in another video. Don't be intimidated by people in the congregation whom you feel are at a higher level, that they're more religious, more pious, more holy. I felt that way many, many times. And a friend of mine, Daniel, I was at the Baalei Shul, a Hasidic synagogue in Toronto, and I was feeling very down because I felt I'm never going to reach this level. These guys are leaving me in the dust. And my friend Daniel came over. He's my friend now. He's new at the time. He was new to me at the time. He says, "You seem a little down." And I told him what I told you. And he says, "Don't be so impressed by the people who are around you. You don't know what's in their mind, and you don't know what's in their soul, and you don't know what's in their heart. Worry about yourself and your relationship to God. Worry about your own davening. Make it real." That was some of the best advice I've ever been given in a synagogue, and I'm giving it to you too. Don't worry about other people. You're there to connect with the Almighty, to connect with the Creator. Let that be the most important thing to you. If it takes you more time, it takes you more time. No one's going to jump out of a window because you're finishing the Shema 30 seconds later than everyone else. You are there to connect with God. Don't worry about it. And then If you're lost, you're lost. If you don't know what parsha you're on for the Torah reading, lean over to somebody. Say, excuse me, what's the parsha this week? I'm new here. And they'll tell you. And if you have a chumash, and it's a common chumash, and it has some English, they'll tell you the page, they'll tell you what it is, you'll look it up, and you'll follow. It's not rocket science. It's totally doable. It is. And a lot of it is just getting used to it. Getting used to the idiosyncrasies of that particular congregation, their style of davening, their particular siddur, their customs. There are certain things that people do and certain things that people don't. You'll blend in. You'll find. Eventually, it won't be new to you. It'll be the way it is. And when that happens, and sooner than you think, you'll be sitting in shul, and you'll be following things along, and you're starting to get the hang of it. And a newcomer will lean over to you, and he says, "I'm sorry. What page are we on? What are we doing? What's the parsha this week?" And you'll know the answer. And you'll be able to give the answer, and you can just say to yourself, "Yes, finally, I'm the one who's answering the questions, not the one who's always asking the questions. I'm the one who knows. I can help someone else." And that is a magic moment. And it's going to happen sooner than you think. There's always somebody new coming in, whether he's a returnee, whether he's a Baalei Tshuva, whether he's a convert, whether he's Bnei Noach. There's always somebody new to that synagogue, isn't used to the way things are done. This is your home. And take that to heart. This is your home. This is your seat. This is your congregation. This is a place where you belong. It may take you a little while for you to feel at home, but it is your home. We're going to be doing more videos along this line. I hope you're enjoying them. I hope you're learning from them. Until next time, on behalf of the Emunah Project, I'm Daniel, and thank you too much.